So welcome everybody. I'm R.A. Powell. I'm a children's author, and welcome to the first workshop of this brand new creative writing course. Before we start, I mentioned it just then when people were tuning in, but make sure that you've got a pen or a pencil and some paper to write things down and take notes. Because if there's one thing we must do as a writer is write. We must write things down. We must write our ideas down, our thoughts, our feelings, our observations. We want to build a kind of a library of our ideas that belongs to us. And so if we build this library, then we have more ideas to work from to write stories. So always write things down. Over the next 10 weeks, I will be live here on Facebook at 4 p.m. in the UK time every Thursday to host workshops which cover different aspects of creative writing. Many people say to me, I would love to write a book, but I don't know where to start. Or I would love to write a book, but I just don't think I could write that many words. And what I always say to that is, you can do it. If you really want to write a book and you've got a message or an idea or a subject that you want to share with others, then you can absolutely do it. Anyone can write a book if they want to. No one has a monopoly on creativity and writing. We can all write, we can all think, we can all dream up ideas. So I want you to remember that. And it also depends on what types of books that you want to write, because there are many different types of books for different age groups, different genres, fiction or non-fiction. So I think it's quite useful to understand the range of different books that are out there. So let's just kind of go through them now very quickly. So, starting right from a very young age, this is a board book. This is perhaps up to 50 words, maybe, maximum in this book. It's very much about the illustrations. And this is for a baby. It's very much the introduction to a human being kind of experiencing the magic of holding a book and then opening the pages. So these books are really important because they're the first step into a human being reading. So these are board books. Then we have picture books, which our oldest two children love, mainly for toddlers, but also for maybe 5 or 6 year old children who are starting to read independently. And again, illustration heavy, maybe up to about 1,000 words in one of these books, mainly around, between 500 and 1,000 words. They're always generally 32 pages in length for some reason. So these are picture books. Then we have easy reader books. Slightly for older children, for maybe 5, 6, 7 years old children when they're first starting to read a little bit more and read them more independently. These again still very illustration heavy, but will have maybe 2,000 words in them. Then we have a big category which we call, for some reason, we call middle grade. And these books, these are the books that I write. So these are my books. As you can see, they're pretty chunky books, generally about 30 to 40,000 words. Not many illustrations in them. And these are, I guess, the first novels that people read, children read to themselves. And this is a big segment of books targeted towards children aged between 8 and 12, which is a huge age range in terms of development and reading ability. But you'll see lots of different types of books within that age range. Then we have what we call young adult books. This is the Hunger Games, one of the Hunger Games books. But the beauty of this is, you know, adults read this as well. I love these books. My wife introduced them to me. A little bit thicker, more content, a little bit more advanced, maybe some more themes in there or elements of the narrative which are a bit more grown up, and a stepping stone to, you know, just general fiction books that are mainly for adults. This is one of my favourite authors, C.J. Sansom. He writes historical fiction books featuring a great detective called Matthew Shardlake, and they're set in the Tudor times, but you can see that's a pretty chunky book, and I would say that's 100,000 words plus easily. So, and then actually finally we have non-fiction books, so encyclopedias or books that are kind of self-help books. So like this is Yoga and Pregnancy, which it belongs to my wife, and so it really depends on the type of book that you want to write, and you will all have your own tastes in reading and different authors and writing styles, which will determine the type of stories that you would like to write. But regardless of what types of stories you would like to write, and books that you read, and whether you're a serious writer already and you want to take it to the next level and get published, or whether you've never wrote a story before, I hope you can take something away from this course. So over the next 30 minutes or so, we'll talk through a few things, because today's all about getting started. It's about building some foundations so you can make the most of this course. And it's about us getting to know each other as well. And we're getting to know these spammers who seem to be writing lots of comments, which is very annoying, and apologies to everybody. And I can see some people commenting saying, please stop the spamming. But hopefully we're getting to know each other a little bit, and we've got an activity that will run throughout the next 30 minutes, which will help us do that. So for the next 30 minutes, we'll cover three things. One is an overview of the course. I'll talk you through what we're going to be doing over the next 10 weeks. And secondly, I want to talk about how you can ingrain writing into your life. So how you can move it from something you do occasionally, maybe once every month or once every couple of months, into something that you do every week and maybe a few times a week. And so we'll talk about that, how you can think like a writer, read books like a writer, and be a writer and really develop your style. And then finally we'll have a live Q&A. So if you've got any questions about the course or any questions generally, please feel free to put them in the comment section at any point from now, and I'll come back to them at the end of this workshop. And if you do have a question, please write the word question before your question, just so I can pick them out more easily, and especially because we've got so much spam on there. So hopefully those spammers will not be around for next week. So, but let's start with an activity. So I want to get you warmed up. This will be the first part of an activity that we will return to occasionally over the next 30 minutes. I would like you to write down on the paper in front of you, and also in the comment section, what is the thing in life which most inspires you. What most inspires you? It could be a hobby, it can be a subject at school, it could be a film, a book, a sport, a period in history. What most inspires you? So while you think about that, and while you write that down, and please feel free to share it in the comments section. People are already writing in there, which is great, which is fantastic. And we'll come back to those in a second. So while you do that, let's go through the next 10 weeks of the course. I want to give you a whistle-stop tour of what we're going to be doing. So today, as I said, is all about finding your inspiration, It's about getting started and building those foundations to maximize the learning from this course. Next week, week 2, is when we start the course properly. And next week, we're going to be focusing on characterization, which is the process of creating characters. And characters are so important in a story, and we want our characters to feel real and authentic. We want our readers to have some kind of reaction and some kind of opinion or feeling about our characters. So in next week, that's what we're going to be talking about, is how we can create characters that our readers love or love to hate or just hate. Week 3 is all about settings, and this settings is the world in which your story exists. So where does it take place? Is it in a village, a town, a different country, a different planet? Is it set in the past, the present, or the future? And so we'll go through all of that in week 3, because the environment in which your story is set can really kind of build a sense of atmosphere, and it's really important. Week 4, we're going to be talking about narrative. Narrative is essentially the structure of your story. And of course, we have the classic beginning, middle, and end, which we can use. But what I would like to do in that week is to talk about the 4 S's, 7 steps to story structure, and having some kind of framework to apply your writing to will help your writing no end. It will help you kind of make the narrative and the story flow more freely, and make the characters fit in at the right places. Then we have dialogue. In week 5 we have voice, which is how we give our characters a voice. That's how our characters interact and communicate and talk to each other, which is really important. Let me refresh that. Which is really important because that can really elevate our characters in terms of their authenticity. We want our characters to have quirks to their speech, to have their own unique voice, to maybe have an accent. So that's what we'll be talking about in week 6. In week 5, sorry. Week 7, we'll go through themes, where we'll be discovering and kind of exploring the themes in our stories. So all stories have a theme. They have messages, they have subjects. It could be good versus evil. It could be heartbreak. It could be an underdog who kind of defeats against all odds, comes out the hero at the end. But essentially all stories have a theme, and we'll be exploring that, how we can elevate that in our writing. And then the final 3 weeks is ideal for people who have perhaps done a first draft of a story and now want to take it to the next level. That could either be just sending it to a family friend or letting someone else read their writing, which for a lot of people can be a big thing. People can feel quite protective of their writing and they don't really want to share it because they're not sure what people will think. Or it could be that you want to get your story published. So for the final 3 weeks, in week 8, we've got editing, which I like to call getting your story match fit. We want to scrutinize our writing. We want to go through it with a fine-tooth comb. We want to improve it, refine it, and get it as match fit, reach our full potential for the story that we've wrote. And then week 9 is about getting published. So we'll talk about the process of sending your story to an agent or a publisher, or self-publishing. It's a bit of a minefield, so we'll try and kind of simplify that process, and I'll talk about that. And then in week 10, we wrap up. We bring everything together, all of those ingredients, all of those learnings, all of those tips and tricks that we've learnt in the previous 9 weeks. We'll bring them together and we'll wrap up. So I hope that sounds okay. That's what we're going to be doing, and I hope you can stay with me throughout the course. Apart from the spammers, you can not come back, hopefully. Because what I would also like you to do, and throughout these 10 weeks, is to use some of the principles that we talk about in the course and to apply them to write a 1,000 word story about adversity. So adversity is a theme, so we're going to be covering themes in week 7. But a story about facing and overcoming a challenge. So I would like you to do that throughout these next 10 weeks. So you can start writing your story now, tonight, the weekend, next week, but hopefully you can work on it and dream up some ideas and improve it as we go through the weeks. So let's just return to the activity. So this is part 2 of the activity. In the first part, I asked you to write down, and it's great to see the comments and what inspires you, and we'll come on to them in a second. I asked you to write what inspires you. It could be a book, a film, a period in history, a subject at school, a person. What inspires you? So that was the first part. For part 2, what I would like you to do is to write down, if you had a magic wand, what would the one thing you would change about the world? It could be something big, like you would want a greener, cleaner, more equal world. It could be something fun, like you wished someone had invented time travel so you can travel back in time to see the dinosaurs. Or it could be something small and trivial, like you wish your parents would let you stay up later on a weekend. So have a think about that. So that's part 2 of the activity. The first part is what inspires you. And then part 1 is what inspires you. And part 2 is what you would change about the world. And we'll come back to those 2 things very shortly. Because what this is about is us trying to get 2 ideas to collide. How can we connect 2 different things? And how can we generate an idea from 2 different subjects and bring them together? And we'll try and do that shortly. So let's move on to talking about how you can ingrain writing into your life. Because today is all about us getting to know each other. It's about finding our inspiration. It's about kind of creating those building blocks to ingrain writing into your life, but also to maximize this course. I will share with you that I'm very much a part-time author. I have a very demanding full-time job, which I love. I also have 3 very small children. So finding time to write is not easy. But I always do my best and try my best to try and write a few times a week, or at least think about my writing. And that's important. Sometimes we can write without physically writing. We can think about ideas in our head. And so that's an important thing which I'm going to talk more about in a second. So for example, before COVID-19, I used to commute into London every day for work. So I'd be on a train 40 minutes into London and 40 minutes back at the end of the day, which was, 5.5 hours a week on the train. So I used that time to write my first 3 books. I wrote these books on my mobile phone, on the train. Obviously now, I don't get on the train into London at the moment. So I now write late on an evening when my wife and children are all in bed and I've finished work stuff that I've got to do. But I've found a new time when I can write, and that's important. So have a think about when you could build writing into your routine, whether that's once a day or even just a few times a week. Think about those spare 15 minutes or 30 minutes when you might watch TV, or you might play computer games, or you might scroll on social media, and think you could actually write instead. and it's such a good use and productive use of your time. So just think about that. And once you do that, it becomes addictive. And so, for example, if I don't write or even think about writing for a few days, I get this nagging feeling in the back of my head, which is good because that gives you the drive and the urgency to continue to write and to improve and to be better. So have a think about your routine and examine when you could fit writing into it. So that's one thing. But here are 5 things that you can, I would write these down as well. And some of you may be doing these things already. But these are 5 tips that you can incorporate into your life, which will help you with your writing. So the first one is, I've already said it about 10 times, is write things down. Write down your thoughts, your ideas, keep a notepad or some paper, or if you're old enough and you own a device, write things down. So if I have an idea for a story, I email it to myself on my phone. That's what I do. And I've got an email folder in my inbox called Book Ideas. And in there, I've got loads of emails which I've just sent to myself, which might be 1 or 2 words, but they're ideas and they're always there for me. And that's what I said at the beginning, is kind of building your own idea library that you can always go back to. And that's something that you may already be doing, but you can start to do. Build your own library of ideas. And isn't that magical that you can do that? Because all your ideas come from there, and you've just got to get them from there onto paper or some kind of device, so you don't forget them. That's number 1. Number 2 is to draw on experience, on your personal experiences, and find inspiration. And this can be in the most kind of mundane, boring situations, or it could be in happy, funny memories. But as writers, we must absorb our surroundings and environment, and we can do this in different moments in our life. And so we do this kind of by analysing how we feel or how we felt during that moment. Let me give you an example. Let's just say, this is just an example, let's just say that you've had a terrible day at school or at work, where your teachers told you off for something that you didn't do, you got a terrible mark in your mock exam, or at work you were told off in front of all your colleagues and from your boss, and you leave work, it's a Monday, it's raining, it's miserable, it's cold, it's wet, it's January, and you're walking home and it starts to rain really heavily, and it's kind of one of those things where you're just fed up, and the rain kind of just makes you feel extra fed up. And then you've got a 20-minute walk home. You haven't got an umbrella. You haven't got a coat. How do you feel at that moment? Yes, you feel fed up. But think about the different parts of you, of how you feel. What was your state of mind? How did your skin feel with all of these cold, damp clothes stuck to them? How did your feet feel with when they were squelching in your cold, damp shoes? So these are things these are feelings and reactions that we experience that we can use in our writing, and we can use it to great effect to describe how our characters felt or feel at a moment or in a particular scene in our stories. So it's kind of trying to think like a writer and using your personal experiences to kind of jot down and document how you feel or felt in those different situations, and both physically and emotionally. I hope that makes sense. Number 3 is to read like a writer. So we all read books, which is fantastic, and we just read them, we enjoy them, or maybe we don't enjoy them. But actually, a good thing to do if you're serious about writing is to, when you read a book, is maybe just write a few notes about what you enjoyed about the book. and perhaps what you didn't enjoy about the book. So it could be you enjoyed the style of writing, you enjoyed the way the author described the characters, you enjoyed the fast-paced nature of the narrative, but perhaps you didn't enjoy one of the characters. You didn't feel that character made sense or didn't really add anything to the story. So, kind of analyze, as well as, it's important just to enjoy reading, but actually you can almost take that to another level and analyze the books that you read as well. So do a bit of a critique of them. You could even write a review of the book as well to yourself, or you could put that, of course, on Amazon or somewhere else. But just think about what you like about particular books or authors, and what you dislike, and you can take elements of different authors into your own writing. So read like a writer, and that will come. But just start perhaps the book that you're currently reading. Maybe when you finish it, do a little kind of review, what you liked and what you disliked. That's number 3. Number 4 is just to practice. Just write. Sometimes I'll just kind of write freehand, where I'll just sit at the computer and I'll just type without thinking, and I'll see what comes out. And more often than not, it's gobbledygook. A lot of it doesn't really make sense, but sometimes I'll get a little gem or a little phrase in there, or a sentence which I think, oh, I like that, I'll use that in something else. But other times, I'll sit down and I'm writing my next book now, which will be out later this year. I'll sit down and write. So the more you write, the better you'll get. And the better you'll get, the more you'll enjoy it. And the more you enjoy it, the more you'll do it. It's this kind of beautiful, virtuous circle. So just practice. And then finally, number 5 is, which I think I mentioned previously, is just write for fun. Just do it to enjoy it. It's so important. If you don't enjoy writing, then it's going to be hard to continue to do it and do it on a regular basis and to improve and take it to where you want to take it. So just do it for fun, and don't worry about what anybody else thinks about your writing. Some people might like it, some people might not. You've got to be prepared for honest feedback from people, but just write for yourself and write stories that you love personally. So they're the 5 things. So if you start to do one or more of those things, and kind of maybe think more like a writer, analyze situations a bit more, these are all good traits to have if we want to create our own worlds and our own characters and our own stories. Anyone can write, anyone can create, and if you already write poems or songs or stories, you are already a writer. No one can take that away from you. Of course, there's a difference to being a published author, which we can talk about in week 9 if that's of particular interest to some people. But first and foremost, it's all about you, about expressing yourself and letting your personality and experiences flow out onto the paper. So let's before we go to a Q&A, because I've seen quite a lot of questions coming through there, let's just do the final part of the activity. So part 1 was I asked you to write down what most inspires you in the world. And then part 2, I asked you to write down, if you had a magic wand, what would be the thing you would change most about the world. So 2 things. So for part 3, what I would like you to do is either now, or maybe you can take it away and think about it, is to look at your 2 ideas, the 2 topics that you've wrote down, and try and make a list of the commonalities. What are the things that you could connect those 2 different topics to? Because this is how we can, when 2 ideas collide, we can create something new, and we can create a new idea, a new concept that we can build on, and we can start to write a story. So with your two things, let's try a little bit of an experiment. There's tons and tons of comments. I'm going to have fun reading these comments later. Let's have a look. I want to try and find two topics that I can try and connect in some way, but I don't know if I can scroll all the way back up to those topics. So let's leave that. What I'll do is I'll try and do that after, and give you some examples for next week. But so for some homework, look at the two things that you've wrote down, the thing which most inspires you, and the thing that you would most change about in the world, and then think about those, try and connect them, look at the commonalities, what are the things that you could weave in to either of those topics and join them together. And this is kind of idea generation. This is how we generate ideas and concepts to write stories. So let's, there's quite a few, lots of comments there. I can't keep up with the comments, and I can't read them all, so apologies. So we're going to come on to a Q&A now. I hope that kind of made sense. Today was a bit of an introduction. We start the course properly next week. But thank you so much for tuning in. So let's just have 5 or so minutes of questions, which I'm going to kind of go through now.